Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Nicholas Pettis, and I'm joined by Mr. Brandon Moore. And we are going to be talking about the bots in the college, which I'm sure many people have noticed that there have been some. So, Mr. Moore, could you tell us a little bit about what you know?
Sure. So we actually call them bad actors because we don't actually know if they are bots. We assume they probably are because of the way that it's working. But basically, what's happened is that over the last year or so, CCC Apply, which is run by the Chancellor's office, not by the college, which is how you apply to any of the community colleges in the state of California, they've been experiencing an uptick in what they consider fraudulent applications or possible fraudulent applications just across the system. So during that time, they've been trying to put things in place to kind of curb that or whatnot. MSJC saw an increase in applications last year, but we didn't see a lot of registrations by people who were not students. So that was not a big problem at all. What happened this year is that there was a combination of things going on. One, the fraudulent applicants were still trying to get through. There's a lot of benefits to having a .edu email address. So people are after those benefits and perks that you can get with that, whether it's discounts on software or hardware, those types of things. So that seems to be the motivation. There's also motivation to commit financial aid fraud, to just try to get more money from the federal government or the state, depending on where they're trying to get that money from. So over that time, they've been working on that in an effort to make things a little bit easier during the pandemic and just in general to get students more access to education. The Department of Education also relaxed their requirements for verifying student IDs and identities in order to access federal aid dollars. So filling out your FAFSA and whatnot. So that coincided with the uptick in what we would call bad actors coming in and getting into classes. So what they've managed to do is they've managed to actually fill out a CCC Apply application, fill out a FAFSA, apply for financial aid, and register for classes. So what we found is that we had an influx of bad actors taking up seats in classes with no intention to actually take the class. So it appears they've automated some way to actually get in and get through all of those processes to then actually get seats in classes. So that's actually what we've seen, and we've seen it across the board. We've seen some classes, maybe half the class or 3/4 of the class appears to be full of bad actors, people who are not actual students, not trying to actually take the class or be students, but it appears that they're just after financial aid fraud. So there are some investigations going on at the state and the federal level, which we are a part of. We have reached out to them. They have reached out to us. We have been working with them. At this point in time, it doesn't appear that we paid out any financial aid fraud or monies that shouldn't have been paid out, which to us at the college that's not actually our biggest concern. We can actually work through that and we can deal with that. Our biggest concern is making sure that our seats in our classes are available to our actual students who are trying to take classes and who want to take classes. So that's been our move right now, is to try to figure out the best ways to eliminate. We can't shut down CCC Apply because we don't control that. That's controlled by the Chancellor's office. We don't control the FAFSA. That's the federal government, also not us. So after they already apply, after they get approved for financial aid, then they're coming through to us. And so we're trying to mitigate that to try to figure out if they are real students or not, or if they're just bad actors. So what that means on the end side of this is that some students are seeing right now additional verifications being required for financial aid in order to get that. That's actually one of the only ways that we can verify right now who they are, is sending them through another level of verification. That's actually been requested and required by the Department of Education. Initially, we had launched this so that we could just talk to students. So we started sending out additional requests for documentation so students could verify who they were, and then we would go ahead and give them their financial aid. When the school was requesting it, when we were doing it on our own, it was actually pretty easy, because if a student got that message, they were calling financial aid and saying, hey, I don't know why I'm getting this. We would verify that they were actually who they said they were, and we would actually just waive that verification so they didn't have to submit anything. Unfortunately, what happened over the last couple of weeks is that the Department of Education at the federal level said, you need to send these specific students through verification. And so there were quite a few students that they requested for that, and we don't have the ability to waive that. So when the federal government requests it, now students have to submit documentation. So anytime you're trying to catch bad actors, you might get some real people in the process. So what's happening is there are going to be probably, I think there were just over 3,000 students that the Department of Education identified for us to research. In that group, some of them will be actual students. And so some people will have a small inconvenience of having to supply some additional verification, which was just waived back in the summer by the Department of Education and now re-implemented when they realized that this was a lot worse than they thought. Over the last few years, we've seen roughly a 700,000 applicant increase in the chancellor's from the chancellor's office and the number of applications that are coming through. And I can send you a link to the chancellor's office data so you can see that. I may be slightly off on that number, but I'll get you that so for your report, you can see that. So at this point, what we're trying to do is we're working with our financial aid department and our enrollment services department in conjunction with Department of Education, the Office of the Inspector General, as well as Bank Mobile, who is the actual company that disperses financial aid funds, to try to mitigate this. Obviously, their interest is to make sure that we're not paying out dollars to non-students, to the bad actors. Again, our biggest concern as a college is not the dollar side of it. It's the fact that we have students that we're trying to serve and trying to get them into classes, and they may not have been able to get classes because some bad actors were filling up seats. You wanted all the information. So basically, the other thing that I know is that this is impacting, so far we've verified it's impacting over half of the colleges in the state. Our assumption, our guess is that the ones that aren't reporting haven't found it yet, because if somebody went through the time to figure out how to get through CCC Apply and the FAFSA to automate that process, you're just going to go ahead and do everybody. You're just going to get after them all. So we know that the colleges in our area have been hit pretty hard. And so we're working with them also to help mitigate that, find out, hey, sharing ideas. Hey, what are you doing to try to mitigate this? What are we doing to mitigate this? So we are trying to work together on it, since it's kind of a system-wide issue that's impacted us. So it's kind of where we stand right now. And we don't actually we're working on plans, again, in conjunction with those other agencies, on how to mitigate this moving forward as well.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. This has been very interesting to learn about this firsthand. So thank you guys, and keep tuned for an episode where I interview 2 of our professors at MSJC to see what their experience has been like. This is Nick Pettis once again with Mr. Brandon Moore, and we'll see you guys next time.